Thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon for What's New in K-12 Interoperability, a recap with 1EdTech. My name is Erin Faye Caesar, and I am the Project Associate with Project Unicorn, and I'm excited to be hosting this session with Project Unicorn and 1EdTech. If you've missed the major announcements from 1EdTech's recent Learning Impact Conference, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into the latest developments in K-12 data infrastructure, interoperability tools, and new partnerships that are shaping the future of education technology. We're thrilled to have Dr. Tim Clark joining us today to break down these important updates. Tim will not only help us understand what's new, but why these changes matter for educators, administrators, and students across K-12 systems. For those new to Project Unicorn, we're an initiative focused on improving data interoperability within K-12 education. Our aim is to create a community of innovators who make the broader case for secure interoperability by determining shared priorities, working in partnership with school systems and vendors to understand its importance and benefits, creating a demand-side push for interoperability through partnerships, and educating buyers to consider the total cost of ownership through informed comparison of vendors. 1EdTech Consortium is a valued member of our steering committee, and this partnership represents something unique in the education space. Together, we're creating what we call an uncommon alliance, bringing together diverse perspectives, united by our shared commitment to leveraging data for better educational outcomes. So we're going to dive right in, and I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Tim Clark. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Erin Faye. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today and to share with you some of the exciting things happening with 1EdTech Consortium. I've had a long career as an educator. I was a teacher mostly in the elementary grades for a long time. I've also worked for an EdTech supplier for a time, and I've been a district administrator. My most recent role in the district was as the executive director of curriculum instruction and digital learning for Chicago Public Schools before joining 1EdTech. So I'm thrilled to share with you the many exciting things that are happening in 1EdTech. And yes, we are a proud member of the Project Unicorn Steering Committee. We are thrilled to be working with Project Unicorn as well as the other members of the steering committee to help support learning interoperability and to make sure that we provide a learning experience for teachers and students that helps to have a plug and play, seamless user experience, but also to be able to provide meaningful data from the resources that are being used in schools and classrooms across the country and the world. And I'll just talk a little bit more about 1EdTech. So 1EdTech does signify an open, trusted, and inclusive education technology ecosystem. And we are a global nonprofit organization, membership organization with members from around the world. Currently, we represent over a third of the US population by student enrollment. And we have members that are school districts, state departments of education, higher ed institutions, as well as edtech providers from around the world collaborating and working together in the use and implementation of 1EdTech open standards for interoperability and data privacy. I even see some of our global members from around the world that are members of 1EdTech. And so again, thinking about our 4 pillars, I know you can't really see the way that slide changed here, but again, that we have the variety of institutions as members of 1EdTech, as well as the edtech providers. And so by collaborating with each other, we're able to create a safer and more seamless user experience with educational tools. And we develop our standards in collaboration as part of our 1EdTech community. And I'm going to share with you some of the latest updates in those standards today. And again, all of this work is about creating this open, trusted, and innovative digital learning ecosystem. And you can see all of our standards listed in the center of this icon in the slide here. And many people know about our standards, but more so than they know about 1EdTech. So standards such as LTI, Learning Tools Interoperability, is used very ubiquitously to connect learning tools into a learning management system, as well as our standards. One roster is pretty much used in K-12 as the go-to rostering solution. And then we have other standards people might not consider as part of 1Tech typically, and those are open badges and CLR. And so a lot of the standards around digital credentials are part of 1EdTech's work too. And so we continue to collaborate together in this work among our community. So we just had, as Darren Fay was saying, our Learning Impact Conference. It was held in Indianapolis. So we had a racing theme, and we do think that we are on the right track. We just have begun with a new CEO last June of 2024, and Curtis Barnes, and we've changed a lot of the work that we're doing in our organization. And we have a lot of additional collaboration with other organizations, and some of those things we're going to share with you today. I'm even going to give you sneak peeks into some things that are really going to be announced in more detail next week at ISSE, but some exciting things that are happening as a result of the collaboration around our interoperability standards. And if you have any questions along the way, go ahead and share them out in the Q&A, and we will be discussing those at the end of my presentation today. So I'm going to be sharing with you a lot of new things, and I can't wait to hear what questions you have about those. So in our first lap of new things, new implementations, or new updates from 1EdTech, we have an exciting collaboration with EdFi Alliance, and we are calling that Unlocking Data to Drive Learning. And we're teaming up with EdFi Alliance to help educators use data better. So this is one of the things that we're most excited about in our collaboration this year in 2025. We've been doing a lot of work with EdFi Alliance. And for many organizations, there was always this confusion about when EdTech has standards and EdFi Alliance has a data standard, and when do I use what standard set, or are they competing standard sets? And actually, we don't compete at all. We actually have a lot of synergy between our standards. And the EdFi data standard has been used pretty much in state reporting, but also in by districts that want to utilize their information from their activity within their learning systems, their assessment data, and pull it all together into a data warehouse and be able to get some actionable data and maybe create a teacher dashboard for that information, or use it for state reporting to provide the state with data as far as student information. However, many of the districts said they want to use the one roster standard for rostering because it is so ubiquitous among EdTech products and applications. So we decided that these two taste better together. And so combining 1EdTech and EdFi, we're able to do both of those things. Utilize the EdFi data standard for that analytics, and then also use 1EdTech's one roster standard. So we wanted everyone to think about, imagine if every student was in every app on the first day of school, dashboards were preloaded with class rosters, and that there were fewer support tickets and faster learning starts because everything has already been rostered, ready to go. Think about, what would your classroom look like if all of this was ready to go? What would you focus on first, and what would it free you up to do? This work that we're doing directly impacts the work of teachers in the classroom, with rostering, a way to easily access student information, and then be able to pull all this together into meaningful data that can help inform instruction. And that is our goal with this collaboration. And so we know that there are a lot of pain points with rostering, that you can have inconsistent data across implementations and platforms. There can be different interoperability standards. This pushes a lot of a workload onto states and districts to fix these things that should be handled by their ed tech providers and suppliers and vendors. It can be slow results and value back to the classroom, making you even wonder, is it even worth trying to collect all of this data? And then there's a lack of common understanding among the different data sets. And then there's a lot of ambiguity among approaches for assessment. So we wanted to make sure that we simplified all of this and provided a more streamlined user experience. And so EdFi Alliance asked their community, and really it started with them working with their community about should they endorse OneRoster's use as the starting point when it came to learning tools and being able to pull information from those tools. And then rather than trying to expand that use of custom metadata, all of those extensions that could be there, should we really try to force to endorse the use of the EdFi API to source additional student data instead of developing a lot of extensions for OneRoster? And then should the two communities collaborate to coordinate specifications to simplify data exchange? And the EdFi community said yes in each of these areas. So we collaborated together. They contacted us. We met with them and decided to move forward with a coordinated approach to better streamline our two communities. So some of the things that this makes possible is day one readiness, focusing on teaching and not troubleshooting, having confidence in the student data that you're able to collect, seamless support transitions and faster onboarding and lower costs, which actually helps the providers as well as the districts, as well as the states. And then better assessment delivery, better instructional analytics, and better student support systems. And this is a community that, again, engages districts, states, and the ed tech providers. With the outreach of our two communities, here you can see in this map, the EdFi Alliance communities, and then you have the 1EdTech communities, and then you can see in the yellow and blue together, when we bring our communities together, we're going to be meeting the needs of over 20 million K-12 learners through our joined communities. And we decided this impact was huge and worth the effort. So that brings together almost half of the learners in the country in this work. And I'm sure that many more will follow as we begin to take the lead in this initiative. And so we're calling this Unlocking Data to Drive Learning by bringing together the 1EdTech OneRoster standard and the EdFi data standard. And the OneRoster standard allows schools and districts to securely and reliably exchange roster information, course materials, and grades between systems, and it's widely adopted by EdTech providers. And it gives educators the flexibility to choose the resources they want to use. And the the EdFi data standard also organizes and manages a wide variety of educational data, and it delivers data in a standardized format, and that makes it much easier for reporting, program assessment, and individualized student support. We already have examples of this in place. The Michigan Data Hub on their own had already worked to put this in together to meet the needs of the learners in the state of Michigan. And they've been, they were a great representative of both of our communities, and they helped to bring us together into this work. And using that as a blueprint, we then set up to develop a rostering steering committee that involved many providers as well as representatives from districts and states in a collaborative partnership along with our own teams to begin this work. And so we've been working collaboratively since January on this work, and we're making a lot of progress. So far, we are already seeing some outcomes, which are aligned standards, where we've mapped the different standards sets, and that's going to help reduce friction for vendors and agencies that have to support both standards. Some of them are already trying to implement both. Many student information systems were trying to develop out supports for OneRoster and then also develop out supports for the EdFi data standard. And now we're able to streamline that. We also have implementation artifacts, tools and resources that can already make it more turnkey for others to adopt these standards and some joint governance as far as working collaboratively to sustain alignment and ensure that the community's voice is heard in the evolution as we continue to improve this joint collaboration. And we did have some guiding principles that it remains learner-centric, that there's agency and ownership as far as the stewardship of the systems, that there's a supplier ecosystem that's actually, we want to make sure we consider the needs of those suppliers and reduce costs for implementation, that there's transparency and communication among our organizations, and as well as collaboration, and that we understand it's an iterative progress where we continue to make improvements over time. And so here's like a quick diagram of the proposed architecture. I'm just going to leave it there for just a second for you to be able to see the transfer of data using both the EdFi API as well as one roster and how that will enable the transfer of data. And again, I've already talked about a lot of the benefits, but there will be fewer extensions, faster onboarding, reusable configuration across states, greater consistency. We can even start looking at other things like certification of those EdTech providers to both the one roster specification, but also the EdFi data standard, and then it will be a lower development cost. So here's what we would like you to do if you're a technology provider or a roster platform to get involved. Please use the one roster profile to streamline rostering in the states on the EdFi data standard. Now, if you're a state or a service provider, the one roster import is going to simplify your vendor onboarding. You can still use EdFi APIs that will remain central to your state ecosystem. And then those managed service providers can bundle one roster to EdFi services. And what we would like you to do is to make sure that if you are an SCA, provide a rostering endpoint with data you already have. You already have that data, but provide a rostering endpoint to benefit your districts. And then if you're an MSP, commit to certifying to one roster to deliver a managed coordinated solution, and that will help your costs. And for school districts, one roster will be your shared export target. There'll be less waiting, fewer support tickets, more time for instruction. And then how you can get involved is advocate for this coordinated solution with your RFPs and your procurement processes. And then right now we're in our summer part of our roadmap, and we're confirming our pilot sites. We're moving forward with some early pilots. We're getting ready to push this forward, and then we're going to be looking for additional individuals to begin to implement this shared collaboration, this shared initiative, and the shared solution as we continue to expand the initiative. So we're very excited about this. Again, we have some more information coming up, and we have a website put together about this, and that's connected with that QR code where you can find more information and some additional supports for supporting your work with 1EdTech and EdFi in this solution. Okay, lap 2, and I'm going to go quickly for CASE, Competencies and Academic Standards Exchange. If you haven't heard about this standard from 1EdTech, this is a standard that you need to know more about. It impacts so much of what we do in teaching and learning, because we know that our interoperability work, our technical work, actually relies on the academic instructional standards that are used. And it's time for teaching and learning to really own the work around CASE because it's so integral to what they're doing. So Competencies and Academic Standards Exchange is a 1EdTech standard that allows organizations to publish metadata about educational outcomes, courses, and other resources, for example, learning standards, in a standardized machine-readable format. It's openly available via a standardized API, and issuing agencies such as the Department of Education actually controls the source of truth. So they completely control what their academic standards are, but the benefit is that now they're in a machine-readable format. And I remember the days of being in a school district or working for an ed tech provider when the issuing agency only provided their standards in PDF. That was very challenging whenever there were updates. It had to go through a lengthy process. I know that as a school district leader, we wanted to implement the new drafts as soon as they were available. And often we were working out of the draft forms for a year before it was actually officially posted on the state's website. And then when I worked for an ed tech provider, it was complicated because it took a long time to realign all of our curriculum resources to the new standards. So by putting them in a machine readable format, you're more readily able to align to them and also update them quickly. And so this has been a huge benefit. And so before CASE, there was a different translation for each digital system. So your SIS might actually call the standard one thing, your learning object repository called it something else, and then your learning management system called it another thing. And so notice how each of these have a different code associated with that standard. But by connecting to CASE, the issuing agency can still start with their PDF that they like to use, but the agency can convert it to the case JSON or the programming language that actually is going to provide a unique identifier for each learning standard, and then it can be published on the agency's CASE web app that implements the CASE API. So you're able to provide all the way down to the element the specific standard or learning outcome for that standard for the learners to achieve. So all of your work can now be aligned to it across the SIS, the Learning Object Repository, and the Learning Management System, all connected to the same standard. So you're able to actually have seamless transfer of that data and be able to ensure that each resource is aligned to the correct learning standard and that students are making the outcomes or meeting the outcomes that you would expect for those elements and those standards. And the exciting thing, which I don't know if I'm supposed to be sharing this, but Google Classroom is also going to be supporting CASE, and they are going to be highlighting it next week at ISTE. I will be there at ISTE with Google sharing out about that exciting adoption of CASE. And just to share a little bit more about the CASE ecosystem and what that looks like is that every state can have their own instance of their own CASE standards, and then you are able to mirror them across. School districts will be able to access them from their states. Many states are already doing this. Alabama is a great example. And then the EdTech suppliers can also align more easily to those as well using the CASE API. And I'm just giving you a little snapshot of this right now. I'm not going to be able to show you this right now from Google Classroom. It will be released next week, but it's really exciting as teachers will be able to align all of their assignments and activities that they give in Google Classroom to academic standards. So teachers will be able to see that the work that they are assigning to students can be aligned to standards, and then they will be able to see better student progress to those standards as well and be able to utilize that for instruction. And again, it puts it in that standardized machine readable format. And here's what it kind of looks like when it's in CASE. You don't have to worry about all of that, the techno magic happening behind the scenes. But for teachers, they're going to see that the academic work or the assignments that they're providing students would be aligned to academic standards. But here's what's happening behind the scene, where all of these different resources are now being aligned to academic standards. The first state to support CASE was Georgia. They have their instance of CASE throughout the state of Georgia, and districts are able to tell their ed tech providers, curriculum providers, that they need to align to those standards. And the state is able to actually see how students are able to progress to those standards, and they're able to provide resources to all throughout the state of Georgia based on those alignments. Now we have 20 states that are now supporting the use of CASE. And it's the primary goal of supplementing the CASE ecosystem that it's a registry of CASE nodes. So if you think about like this is Yahoo was like a registry. It just took the information from the internet and put it in a way that was easily accessible, but they were mirroring out what is actually supported by libraries and other places. And our goal is like, we want to fill in all the missing nodes. We kind of believe that if we build it, they'll come. And so thinking about that, we've gone ahead and started building out the CASE network in and to store standards from other states, even if they're not doing it themselves, but be able to add more information so that districts that are in those states can access the information. So we have 20 states actively publishing, but 9 subjects available for all of the other states. And those 9 subjects are listed here: math, ELA, science, social studies, computer science, world languages, health, physical education, and early learning are available for all of the states. You can access CASE Network and see all of this information and dig in and explore a little more at casenetwork.1edtech.org or scan that QR code. It's really exciting work and the potential of it is huge. So here's your call to action is that if you are a school district, if your state is on blue on this map, help us make it green. Talk to your leaders in those states to support CASE Network. We want to make sure that you have the most up-to-date standards available for your state. It's your state standards. They own their standards, but we would like to make sure that they're all available so that anyone, anywhere would be able to access the information about their state standards and be able to align instruction to it more readily. And then this will, and EdTech suppliers take advantage of the CASE ecosystem. Much more affordable. It's also included in some RFPs for some very large school districts, such as Chicago Public Schools and in the state of Georgia, to align to standards in CASE format so that they are readily adopted. And if you want to find out more about the CASE standard, this is 1EdTech's website about it. You can scan this QR code and find out more information. Okay, another exciting update, Uniform ID. It's another problem that was ready to be solved. It's a collaborative standard to connect application directories across EdTech. So here's the issue. You know that we all have directories, right? ClassLink has a directory of apps. Clever has a directory of apps. ISTE has a directory of apps. 1EdTech has a directory of apps. We all do. We all create great directories, but right now they don't talk to each other. And so that leads to some siloed data, duplicated effort, missed opportunities. We want to make sure that we respect every directory to use their own identifiers, their own metadata structures, their own information, but we want to develop a system to connect the applications, these directories to each other so they can better share information for lots of reasons. I'm going to talk some more about those. We want to make sure that we have shared goals, right? We want to make sure that we can maintain privacy, transparency, interoperability. No one wants to give up their own model for recognizing the different applications, but we have some barriers because everything is disconnected. But so Uniform ID offers a bridge between the different directories, but not a takeover. It's a way for us to work together in this information. So 1EdTech didn't come up with the idea of a decentralized ID. It was done by W3C. What 1EdTech is talking about is using this technology to create uniform IDs. And they have lots of uses. So digital credentials already use decentralized IDs. Passports do, tickets do, patient records do, but we want to bring this into EdTech. Anyone can issue and verify. There is no central owner to them. So ISTE can create its own index. Clever can create its own. ClassLink can create its own. And others can create their own. But this is for the EdTech community to use. And already it's being used by 1EdTech and by ClassLink. And so here you can see what is a uniform ID. And looking at center, you can see the decentralized ID, and it's kind of like the address for it. You can build it out. It can work across systems, so you can name your products however you want to name it, give it whatever code you want, but you can have instant verification of each resource, map the links together, provide services around them, ensure trust. It's backward compatible. You don't have to change anything about what you're already doing. And then you can make sure you're the known origin of that resource. And here's why it matters. You can link directories without restructuring. You can verify app metadata from trusted resources. So you're able to take certification information and share it across platforms. You avoid duplication and reduce manual mapping. And you can enable richer tools, analytics, and discovery services, so you can make your directory more valuable and not more work. So you can imagine how this could be utilized when you are in a school district. You would be able to have the metadata brought within one system. Here you can see an image of what it looks like from 1EdTech's version of this, pulling in the information, the description of the resource. It's showing the certifications the resource already has. We didn't have to change anything about what we already do in 1EdTech, but we're able to connect our resources and share them to other directories, so our information and our data can be shared, just using the common link between existing ones. And there's no vendor lock-in or platform dependency, so it's not like every time you switch a platform, you're locked in. You're able to share information across. The governance is shared via the Uniform ID Task Force, and you decide how you want to issue links or publish decentralized IDs, but it supports each organization's mission and their own data policies. So this is why it's important for districts and states to embrace this. It allows for faster, accurate discovery. You have less duplication, fewer errors, simplified procurement and vetting. We were even sharing out with a large school district about this, and they were saying, you mean I could get all my information about all the apps I want to explore all in one place, and all that information would be there? Yes. So it could really help your procurement. You'll have improved interoperability, and it supports mobility and equity. So it really makes sure that you can really trust the applications that you're using and have better access across all of the directories that you're using. For EdTech providers, of course, it's a huge benefit because you don't have to keep up with multiple platforms. Your information can be shared across all of them, so you're going to have easier integration, easier to manage, share, and showcase your applications. So it's something we would like people to commit to together. Again, it's an open standard, so other organizations can put it into practice. What we need to do as districts and states is to require it in our RFPs and our contracts and from our providers, so that they have that motivation to go ahead and get started in that work. If you want to find out more information about it, here's our QR code to our Uniform ID work. Our technical program manager who's working on this from 1EdTech is Jacques Menache, and I've shared out his email address there, and feel free to reach out and get more information about Uniform IDs. All right, lap 4. This one was something we just shared out at our Learning Impact Conference. It's our Women in Data and EdTech Network. We realized in our organization that there's a gap of the women that are involved in the work of data in EdTech, in particular in data. And we wanted to increase career readiness of participants, develop powerful community connections, and foster long-term professional connections around this work. And we did some studying ourselves, and in data science in general, only about 15 to 20% of the data scientists are women. And even among our own organization, and we have, again, I shared with you how we have so many leading organizations, districts and state organizations throughout the country. And we were realizing only about 5 to 10% of even our own member population were women. And we realized that there is a discrepancy here, even among the EdTech providers as well, and including higher ed. And it was something that in our community we wanted to address. So Widen is our solution here. You do not need to be a member of 1EdTech to participate. We would like you to follow this QR code to find out more information. It's being led by Monica Watts, our Senior Director of Learning Innovation from 1EdTech, and Suzanne Carbonaro, our Vice President of Post-Secondary Education and Workforce Programs. And they would love to have you find out more about Widen and participate with us in this very meaningful work. And then trusted apps is another thing which has really taken off in 1EdTech this year. It's really led to a growth of membership. We now have over 600 districts and states that are members of 1EdTech and continuing to grow. So our Trusted Apps program includes the Trusted Apps Pledge, Trusted Apps Vetting and Certification, our Trusted Apps Management Suite, and our Trusted Apps Certified Leader program. We have a lot of information we can share out about that. What we are doing in 1EdTech is we have been vetting now EdTech applications for about 8 years. We've been vetting all their privacy policies and trying to look and make sure that they meet in all areas of our data privacy rubric. And we share out that information in our Trusted Apps Management Suite. Our members are using it for procurement, but also to share out with teachers which applications are approved for use or not within the districts based on this work. And we know that every school district in the country, no matter how small or how large they are, they're trying to review data privacy policies, which can be very confusing, and find the right information because they need to share it out with their stakeholders. What are the apps that should be used for instruction? So we're helping them out with this work with our data privacy certification as part of our Trusted Apps program. We provide the rubrics within our Trusted Apps Management Suite, and we collaborate with suppliers to help them complete the vetting process. So not only do we vet their application, but if they want to be certified, the EdTech supplier has to go in, certify their own app, and provide evidence of how they meet in each areas of the rubric. And we also have, in addition to that rubric, and we've vetted over 13,000 applications for data privacy, but we also have other rubrics, accessibility, security practices, and generative AI data, the privacy section of that for us to share out in our Trusted Apps Management Suite. And in our Trusted Apps Management Suite, you can see the results of the vetting, and you can see our pie graphs down here to show the areas of data collection, security, third-party data, and advertising, and exactly how the application scored. And then within TAMs, you're able to identify which applications your teachers should use, which are preferred, which are allowed, and which ones are denied based on your own criteria within your district. And you can change the terminology around that. We also have it. We've been having it in K-12 now for about 4 years. And now we have just released it for higher ed. We have customizable fields so you can use your own district's language around that. And all of this is a benefit of your membership in 1EdTech. If you would like to find out more information about Trusted Apps, there's the QR code. It's trustedapps.org, and we're happy to share out that information. Okay, we're bringing it up with our last lap 6, our EdTech Quality Collaborative. And this is some work I've been personally very engaged with in 1EdTech this year. It's an initiative of leading EdTech organizations, CAST, ISTE, and ASCD, Digital Promise, Innovate EDU, 1EdTech, CETA, and COSIN, and we're all collaborating together by providing validators within the EdTech Index. And we're sharing out information. We all validate different types of information, such as the Trust Step Seal of Data Privacy from 1EdTech. We're sharing out that information, collaborating among ourselves about what things we do validate from our organization, and sharing it with one centralized location within the EdTech Index. And you're able to go in and review applications for certification, and then also see which applications that you would prefer to use. CETA has developed procurement guidance around it. COSIN is sharing out their valuable information. All of these organizations are sharing. We meet regularly to continue this work and collaborate together. And what we did was we decided that there were 5 EdTech quality indicators that you should see in every application you want to use, that make sure that they're safe, that they're evidence-based, they're inclusive, they're usable, and that they're interoperable. We all focus and specialize in different areas across our different organizations. So we're sharing out that information in the EdTech Index for you to utilize. So please go and visit that site and find out more information. Here's the link to it, and here's a QR code that will take you to the EdTech Index and see the work that we've been doing. Okay, so I've taken you through our my presentation on all of this. We in 1EdTech, we believe that we're on the right track to accelerate innovation. And please, if you have any questions, now's a good time for that Q&A. And another thing I would like to just give you a shout out to right before we start Q&A is you can become a member of 1EdTech too. We're a nonprofit organization, member community. Find out more information about becoming a member here. You can follow this QR code.
Thank you, Tim. We do have a couple of questions. But before I go into that, thank you again for today's session. Thank you for providing so much knowledge. I know all of us are just trying to become more informed every single day. So thank you so much for this session. And with that, I'll
Thank
move to
you.
this question. With so many moving pieces, from rostering to learning standards to app directories, what's your advice for district leaders trying to prioritize where to start on the path to interoperability?
So if you're a district leader, you need to make sure that in your RFP and your contracts, you don't have to be a member of 1EdTech to advocate for the use of 1EdTech standards. Most of your EdTech products are going to be using one roster, but you should require that they are certified to one roster. We actually run them through a rigorous test to make sure that their applications actually work the way they say that they're going to, and that they do meet the requirements of certification. And if you think about certification, you typically use like a right certified light bulbs right in your house, or a certified electrician to do your electrical work. And I think you want to have that same quality in your EdTech products. So make sure you look for a certification to one roster, and LTI are the two big standards from 1EdTech that are used ubiquitously across the industry. But if you want to visit our website, you can find out more information about that, but really require and I think another thing for as a district leader, and I've been a district leader and I've also worked for an EdTech provider. EdTech providers care about what district leaders say. So realize that there's a lot of power in your position and in your collective voice with other districts coming together in membership in things like Project Unicorn and signing the Project Unicorn pledge, but also in becoming a member of 1EdTech. But that's really bringing your voice together. If you're from a small district, put your voice collectively with the other districts to advocate for interoperability and certification.
Thank you, Tim. The next question is, what would it look like for a district or state to be considered a model ecosystem for interoperability, and what would they be doing well across all these pillars?
Well, I think that you have to stay up to date on what are some of the latest standards. Like CASE was a new one, but teaching and learning. I think that one of the things for interoperability is it typically sounds like it's just technical, and interoperability is more than just technical. It's the impact on teaching and learning that makes the difference. So teaching and learning leaders, as well as technical leaders, need to understand about interoperability. So I shared information about CASE. CASE really is about academic leadership. That's alignment of curriculum resources to machine readable academic standards. And everyone has a certain level of understanding that they need to have about interoperability. I would expect that in a system that's mature and interoperability is going to make sure that they are safely utilizing data and making sure that they're following all of the protocols they should for safety and the transfer of data. They're going to make sure that teachers and students have a seamless user experience, and they're going to be able to transfer data easily from one platform or system to another. And then we're going to require their EdTech providers to follow that, the state or the district's requirements for that interoperability certification. And then you're able to take all of the information you're able to accumulate from student and teacher activity, performance, assessment within systems, and utilize that data to impact instruction. The only way to do that is to make sure that you support multiple things: rostering, data analytics, as well as academic standards to be able to provide meaningful information. And the list just goes on. We continue to grow in the amount of data that we will be able to utilize to improve instruction. So realize you never actually get there. You're always a work in progress and growing in your use of interoperability tools and platforms.
Thank you, Tim. We have another question. There are other standards. What are you doing to interface with them?
So we work very hard to try to collaborate and implement other standards. You can see our collaboration with Ed5 was one example. There are other organizations we would like to continue to collaborate with and to grow with. So please let us know if you see a need for 1EdTech to collaborate with another standards organization. We are happy to embrace that collaboration. Actually, the work with Ed5 came from Ed5, but also from many of our members like Michigan Data Hub and Gwinnett County Schools in Georgia, pushing for that collaboration. So that's just like, your EdTech providers listen when you speak. We as nonprofit organizations listen when our members and other organizations tell us that there's a need we need to address in the community.
Thank you. And we have one last question here. How can districts leverage the synergies between initiatives like CASE, One Roster, and Uniform ID to streamline their digital learning environments without getting overwhelmed?
Well, definitely, I think that you should become a member of 1EdTech. But many, again, our standards are open. Our providers use them, districts use them. Many districts require certification in their RFPs that are not members. But by joining 1EdTech, you're able to have a better understanding of how our standards fit together. I did share out some information about our Trusted App Certified Leader program. We do bundle together our standards in a way that makes sense. We have 5 modules that can lead to professional certification. We call it our Tackle certification, where you can understand more about interoperability. You can understand more about, how does CASE impact digital credentials, for example. We bring that together in a training program. And it's a great way to learn more about interoperability. As far as like finding out information on your own too, one great thing about working within 1EdTech, your providers become your partners. Your higher ed institutions become your K-12 partners. So we are a collaborative among these different organizations, really working together to solve these issues around interoperability and privacy.
Sorry, we have one more question. Sorry. What role
These
do
are
you,
great questions. No
yeah, right.
problem.
What role do you see data privacy rubrics and programs like Trusted Ed apps in helping districts future-proof their tech stacks?
Oh, it's huge. And it's just a starting point. You're going to have your own things that you're going to need to like consider when you're reviewing applications. You're going to have to check and make sure that, it's accessible for certain populations. It, meets certain instructional goals. And, it fits within the priorities of your stakeholders or your community. You're going to have to consider all of those. But the Trusted App Seal of data privacy is one less thing you would have to do as a district, where it's still on you as a district to ensure that the application is private. But it is one thing that every district, again, has to do: review data privacy policies. And it's overwhelming. I know that our members came to us saying, can you help us? We're swamped trying to review data privacy policies. Many districts are using more than 1,500 applications in a year, and they're having a hard time communicating to their teachers about which applications they should use. I really do think it's a huge role in having these different certifications, both for interoperability. That's part of what makes an application trusted, that it is interoperable, that it is effective for instruction. And all of that is related to privacy as well. So I think coming up with a good data governance policy for your institution. And part of that is the use of things such as reviewing validations from other organizations and certifications as just a starting point, and then find out where that can plug into your own district requirements is a huge time saver for you.
Thank you, Tim. That is our last question. And we just want to thank the audience again for submitting their questions in the Q&A chat. I've learned so much from today's conversation. So thank you, Tim, for your wisdom, your knowledge. Greatly appreciated today. We are going to move on to the end of today's session. Before you go, if you haven't heard about Project Unicorn School System Data Survey, it's an annual survey designed to help education sector better understand K-12 school system capabilities and infrastructure for leveraging education data. By participating, you can contribute to a national effort to improve data interoperability, privacy protections, cybersecurity, and digital access in schools. So when you have a moment, please click the link, and we'd love to see your submissions and just see the data compared to where the nation is with their interoperability digital ecosystem. And that is the end of today's session. Again, thank you, Dr. Tim Clark, for your content, for your knowledge. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you, attendees as well. Your engagement is also greatly appreciated. We hope today's session was informative and insightful.